Welcome back to Time in a whole new week, a week where we celebrate the British institution of afternoon tea with all these amazing treats they put on those tiered dishes. When the Jews came back to England after being unwelcomed for about 400 years, they came back and they embraced this new society. They in fact became in some ways more British than the British. And on a long Shabbat afternoon, even today, you can find many British Jews enjoying an afternoon tea. So in celebration of our long, great British summer, we're going to make this stupendous, amazing Shabbat afternoon tea. We're going to work all week to get there. And today we're starting with shortbread. Check that out. So follow along as I give you a step-by-step guide to make your own perfect shortbread. We're starting with the classic shortbread. Shortbread is Scottish in origin. It uses the best butter you could find and not much else in terms of ingredients, but I am going to walk you through step by step. So we're making a shape called petticoat tails. Petticoat is what women would wear under their skirts, and because of the fluted edge of the pan, when the shortbread comes out, they're said to resemble petticoats. So really important is the prep of the pan. So I've got the aluminum foil that held my butter. Because I'm using the entire block of butter, I have this to spare, and I'm just gonna use it to wipe the inside of the pan and grease it with the leftover butter. You could do this with spray, you could do this with a little knob of butter, you could do this with oil, but you know, waste not, want not. And I am using the inside of the butter packet to grease my pan well. And greasing it well is not quite enough. So I also have a piece of baking paper, which I folded in half and then in half again, and then at an angle I kept on folding. I'm gonna measure from the center to wherever it bends, and I'm going to then cut out a circle. This is origami at play here. I'm gonna use that circle, which is a little smaller than the pan itself. There we go. So check that out. And that hopefully is going to keep the shortbread from sticking. I have a little more butter left, so I'm going to butter the paper as well so that hopefully nothing sticks. But knowing me, something's going to stick, something's going to break. That's okay. I've got my handy, trusted food processor, which I use for absolutely everything, and I'm going to start adding my ingredients. There are very, very few ingredients in a shortbread, so replacing something really isn't suggested. In goes my flour, my icing sugar, confectioner's sugar, powdered sugar, whatever you call it, and key ingredient, cornflour, cornstarch. A lot of people use rice flour. The only difference is that with the corn flour, it is a bit chalky while it's still warm. Once it cools down, you don't taste it. But I had no access to rice flour, so corn flour it is. Along with that, 250 grams, 1 full cup, a little more than a cup actually, of ice cold cubed butter is going in. And our last ingredient, because really where would we be without vanilla? So 1 teaspoon of vanilla is going in there, and that is it. Those are all the ingredients. Let's click it all into place and pulse until it starts coming together. That is the entirety of the recipe. So that was flour, icing sugar, corn flour, butter, and vanilla. 5 ingredients going in there to make one of the most delicious treats you will ever have. So quality of the butter is really important. I used unsalted butter. Salted butter, not so good for this because there is really nothing in there. And it's just starting to come together. And the reason I'm not going full throttle with the machine is that I don't want it to like get creamed. I really just want it to like start sticking together into a dough. So I'm just going to keep on pulsing, and I'm already watching it. You can see from the sides of the pan that it's starting to come together. We're nearly there, and there we are. I can see it already. Let me show you. It looks really, really crumbly, but what I'm looking for is that when I take a handful and I smush it together, it does that. That's exactly what I want. A shortbread is a very crumbly biscuit. We're going to use a lot of pressure here to make sure it doesn't crumble while it bakes. So everything is going into my prepared tin that we prepared so carefully. In it goes. And you can now use the back of a spoon, but I have a little trick here rather than a back of a spoon to press it all in. So first, let's spread it out as evenly as possible. And I could see from the chunks at the bottom of the machine that it was already starting to clump together on its own. But right now, I'm just using my hands to spread it all evenly as possible. And then my trick is this. I have a smaller baking tin, and I'm going to use it to press in as hard as possible the rest of the shortbread, and then use my hands to make sure it's going into every one of those little petticoat crevices, because we do like that little shape. I think it adds a little whimsical touch. So after I'm done pressing it in, it's going to go into the fridge for 15 to 20 minutes to set up, and then we're going to do the final shaping before we bake. So our shortbread has been in the fridge for 20 minutes. I did take my time ensuring that the top was nice and smooth, and now it's time for the final shaping. So the first thing is I'm going to cut through it with a knife before it's cooked. I'll do my best to do it in straight lines, but I'm going for 16 wedges. So let's see how we do. The final bit of the wedge won't be perfect, but hey, it's homemade. Isn't that great? Homemade needn't be perfect. So, and also the baking paper underneath will keep me from scratching the pan. So that is 8 wedges. It's about to get harder doing the 16, but I really don't want these shortbreads to be too big, as it is super rich with this amount of butter in it. And keep on going. By the way, in my house, this is Zoom Studio 1. Zoom Studio 2 happens in another room where my husband is starting morning prayers for our community. And there we go. That is my 16 wedges, but I am not done. The next item is a cookie cutter, and that is going in the center. And I'm actually going to take the center of these wedges out. This is going to do 2 things. Firstly, the center is really, really fragile, those little tiny triangles. And the second one is it's going to help it bake, check that out, much more evenly. So there, the center is gone. And my last item is I'm going to make some serious little holes with a skewer all over it to get that traditional shortbread look for the petticoat tail. So I'm going to keep on shaping. This is going to go into the oven for 35 to 40 minutes until it's just starting to turn golden. It needs to cool completely before you start eating them. Oh my goodness, our tea tray is starting to come together. It's going to be incredible. All right, I've had way too much fun poking holes in my shortbread. This is going into the oven. Catch us at the end of the week when we reveal our tea trolley full of all these tea time treats. See you all soon.